All right. Well, attendees are starting to arrive and kind of be checked in or allowed into the webinar. Good morning, everyone from Colorado State University. It is morning here. I should say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. Like if you've ever watched The Truman Show, uh, they greet people from all over the world in that movie. And so we do realize that people are joining us all over the world. And so we are very thankful that you're here. We are experiencing just a little bit of technical difficulties due to one of our main presenters having access to the webinar right now. So we're going to wait for just a few minutes to get started. So just be patient. Know that we will get started as quickly as we can. A couple of the housekeeping items. There is a chat box that you can type your questions into to the hosts and panelists, and we have a group of us here who can answer those questions for you. This one's slightly different than the setup that we had last week in that I believe people can communicate to the hosts and panelists and people can see the chat, but I don't believe you'll be able to communicate to each other. And maybe that was similar to what happened last week as well. But so as you have questions during the seminar, please feel free to type those in the chat. You will not have the ability to unmute yourself and ask questions this time. It'll just be the panelists and the main presenters here that will be able to speak. So you'll need to take advantage of that chat box. So welcome everyone, and feel free to say hello in the chat and maybe even list where you're from. You can, so that we get an idea of where in the world you are right now. So that would be great. And again, please be patient for a short amount of time here. And go ahead, John. It looks like you were going to mention
Greg,
something.
yeah. Good morning, everyone. Or good evening, good afternoon. I'll actually ask you, if you can, to use the Q&A function to ask questions. That way it helps us to keep those organized and we can respond to your questions. So use the Q&A function if you have questions you'd like us to answer.
Great. And
thanks.
It's a good point. That is awesome. Yeah. So Q&A would be great. All right. And I think Alan, who is our main presenter, he is shortly logging in. Looks like he has gained access to his computer. And so we will, when he joins, we will kind of start from there, but I think we'll all introduce ourselves. Again, this little bit of background on these presentations. These are brand new, and so we are kind of troubleshooting a couple of these as we get going with these. But they are intended, not only like last week's session was actually intended for you to get to know the ISSS staff a little bit and for us to introduce ourselves to you. Today's presentation is going to go a little bit more in depth and really kind of give you an idea of what you need to do to prepare to arrive for this adventure. And so we will go over some of the information that we are going to be talking about comes directly from our pre-arrival guide that we have a pretty comprehensive 11-page pre-arrival guide. And I'm not sure if John or Bronwyn can actually drop that link in the chat. That will be a resource that even after the presentation, you will be able to review, and it will help you to prepare. So. And so just be patient. Shortly here, Alan will join us, and then we will kind of get started. So. In the meantime, if you do have any questions, feel free to feel free to ask away in the question and answers. And I did notice that one of our attendees from our housing office, Christy Matthews, good morning, indicated that chat is disabled. So I am hoping that you all can see the chat, just not be able to type in the chat. But if not, we may have to drop that link in the question answers as well, if that works, John. So. And I do see some conversations happening in the background with Alan, who is our main presenter here. So he will be joining us shortly here.
Would you like us to introduce ourselves?
Yeah, let's do that. So I'll start again, just so you all know who I am. Again, Greg Weimer, Director of International Students and Scholars. Joined Colorado State University in July. I've been in the field for about 25 years working with international students and scholars. And so yesterday, I'll share a little bit of personal information with me. Yesterday was my 50th birthday, and I'm not looking for happy birthdays or anything like that, but gives you a chance to reflect on your career, so to speak, a little bit. And I had many international students, former international students, reach out to me yesterday wishing me happy birthday. And has been a career that has been extremely impactful. And I absolutely am honored to have been working in the field of international students for the last 25 years. So yesterday was a little bit of time to reflect on that, and it was just a wonderful experience. So again, welcome all, and I will let Lisa introduce herself next.
Well, hello and welcome everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with you all, and I hope we can answer all of your questions. Again, my name is Lisa, and I'm the Associate Director of Student Success and Retention, so assisting students with a variety of concerns and issues to help through graduation. And I've been in the office at CSU for now 23 years, and like Greg, I've had a long career of great experiences with working with our international students and scholars. And so we welcome you and hope that you will be some of the students that we'll get to work with in the future. So we're glad that you're here. John?
Hi, everybody. Nice to see your names. We don't see your faces, but I see some familiar names in the attendees list. My name is John Hildebrand. I'm a senior international student and scholar advisor here in the office. I've been here for just over 5 years and do a lot of work in assisting students with their immigration requirements. I also teach a course for new undergraduate international students to try to help them adjust to campus. We're not offering that in spring, but we'll offer it next fall. And I'm really excited to see you all and to help answer your questions. We're here to be a resource for you and to really make your experience at CSU really wonderful. And we can't wait to have you here. Zach.
Hi, everyone. My name is Zach Downey. I am an immigration document technician, which means I'm one of the primary folks creating the Form I-20 for you all. I've been at CSU for 3 years now, moved here from Indiana, so all the way across the country almost. It's been great working in international programs. I've been in a university setting for over 20 years, mostly in libraries. And I've found this new path for myself in international programs. It's very rewarding. It's great to meet folks from all over the world, and I'm looking forward to meeting you all in person. Thanks for being here.
Awesome. Thanks, Zach. And I did notice that Alan has arrived and has turned on his screen and then turned it off. Alan, we would like you to introduce yourself, kind of to give a little bit of background on how long you've worked with international students and that kind of thing as well. Trusting you are there. Well, maybe we will move on to Bronwyn. Bronwyn, can you say a few things? And yeah, I know you're both scrambling in the background, making sure the technology works for Alan. So.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bronwyn Watts. I plan programs and events for you all, actually. So orientation when you get here, and then all the fun things that will happen through the spring semester with a great group of other people that help with that. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you all.
Cool, fantastic. And Alan, are you there? And if not, I think maybe what we'll do is we'll just start into the first screen here and kind of all start talking and kind of see how we go from here. And then once Alan is ready with the technology, he can jump in, introduce himself, and then join the presentation and really kind of take over the presentation. So if you want to move to the next screen. So pre-arrival orientation. So a pre-arrival checklist. And so really kind of, again, I want to emphasize that this program is really to help get you to start thinking about what you need to do, not only with processes and procedures, but I think also as you start to think about packing and arriving. And I know many of you are going to be arriving in January. And so we'll talk a little bit about what that means in terms of weather and that kind of thing, and how you can best prepare when you arrive here in Colorado. So next slide. All right, so immigration steps. So first of all of you should have been, usually when we send out these presentations it's to those individuals who have been admitted. So all of you, many of you have probably already received your I-20 or your DS 2019. If you're coming as an F1 student, you will receive an I-20 document that will allow you to apply for a visa. If you are coming as a J1 student or a scholar for that matter, you would receive a DS 2019. And so Zach, who is one of our immigration document technicians, both Zach and Melora actually create those I-20s and those DS 2019s for brand new students. And so if you have not received your I-20 or DS 2019 or wondering how you get that, Zach is here to answer questions on that. These documents, like I said, will help you to, or are needed in order for you to actually go and apply for your visa. You have to actually have the documents before you actually schedule your visa appointment. You can pay the I-901 fee. So the I-901 fee is not a fee that we actually charge you, but this is a fee that actually our Department of State charges you as we create a record in the Student Exchange Visitor Information System. So SEVIS, as we create a record for you, the Department of State charges each individual a $350 charge or fee in order for us to maintain your record in that system. So that is not determined by us. If people think, well, Greg, that's a really expensive fee. You know what, it is, and it is something that is increased over time, and that is a fee that's outside of our control. And so just know that before you can actually create your visa appointment, you have to go out and pay the I-901 fee. And one of the things in the question and answer or the chat, if one of you can actually put the link for the I-901 fee out there, that would be wonderful. So once you've paid the fee, then you want to create your visa appointment. And so creating the visa appointment, there is a form called an I-160, which the Department of State requires you. It's the visa application form. And I hate to say it, but there's an additional fee for the visa application process. And so you want to actually complete that. And then you're going to once you complete that application, you're going to be given an opportunity to schedule your visa appointment based on open dates. And open dates, they fill up fast. And so what we would suggest is that you go out there, pay your I-901 fee, and then fill out your visa application, the I-160, and then schedule your appointment as soon as possible. Typically there's questions like a student might ask, well, what happens if all of the dates are filled? And that happens from time to time just because there are so many people applying for student visas all over the world to come to the United States. And so if you're in that situation, we tell you to continually check that list of open dates every day to see if there's an open session or an open appointment that you can slide into. And so we would encourage you to do that as soon as possible. And then basically from there, you want to prepare for your interview. And so we'll give you a few sample questions, I believe, on another slide coming up here, and really kind of start to think about how you're going to answer some of these questions. And so we want you to make sure that you prepare for your interview. You need to be able to succinctly explain why you chose Colorado State University, and what your plans are. Answer questions on funding if they have it. With both the F1 and the J1 visas, they are non-immigrant visas. And so you have to actually, while you're talking, make sure that you provide a kind of the context or the kind of a picture on what your plans are, and that your intent is not to immigrate to the United States, but rather to return to your home country. And so they're looking for you to kind of provide documentation or just a verbal confirmation of what your intent is after you graduate from college here in the US. And so that intent, you should always be telling the consulate officer that your intent is to return home, and really be able to kind of talk about the close ties or relationships that you have back home that are going to bring you back to your home country. And so that's going to be the important information. We do have a link out on ISSS colostate.edu that actually talks a little bit about preparing for your visa. So we would encourage you to review that document as well. So, all right, next slide. So one of the things we're going to ask you to do is arrange housing and attempt to arrange housing prior to your arrival here in the United States. And so the first thing is start early. Once you've been admitted, you can immediately start to apply for housing, and you can complete the housing application online. Once again, if you can drop the housing link into the chat, that would be great. You got to figure out, are you planning on living on campus or off campus? Now, one thing we want to make sure that all first-year freshmen know is that you are required to live on campus for the first year. And so that housing will be guaranteed for first-year freshmen. If you are a transfer student or a graduate student, getting on campus housing can be a little bit more difficult just due to the sheer volume of students that we have here at CSU. And so we cannot guarantee on-campus housing for graduate students and or transfer students. And so we do have an office called Off Campus Life here at CSU. And they can help you, provide you with some information on available apartments within the community and some of the options that we have. And so with that, thank you, Bronwyn. She just dropped in the Off-Campus Life link. And so that's where you should start if you're a graduate student or a transfer student. And then you got to determine, do you just need individual housing? Would you prefer shared housing? Or are you bringing family? Are you bringing a spouse and children? And if so, what are the opportunities available? We do have a Facebook page, International Rams Facebook page, where individuals can actually connect with other current international students and kind of put out there that you're looking for housing. So there might be an opportunity to, if you're looking, or if you're If you're choosing off-campus housing because you're a graduate student or transfer student, you could sign a lease. One thing we would ask that you do is read through those leases very carefully. They are legally binding here in the United States, which means once you're in the United States, you are held to that lease or that agreement for the length of that lease. So maybe it's a year lease, a 12-month lease. And so if that's the case, there's typically not a way to get out of that lease once you've signed it. So you need to be very cautious as you sign those. And once you've signed it, you're making a commitment to that property owner that you are going to lease or rent that apartment for at least a year. There's sometimes that students are moving on or transitioning, and so there's an ability to sublease from an individual or take over a lease of a past international student. And so though the Facebook page is a great place to actually communicate with current students and actually find out if there's anything available such as that. Our residence halls open on January 12th officially. And so January 7th, you can actually move in early, but there is an extra fee per night, I believe, in order to live on campus for those of you who are first year freshmen. So if you do arrive a little bit early, there is an ability to house you a little bit early. You know, I would ask that, you know, maybe Christy types in the chat basically. At my past institution, they were in temporary housing for about a week, and then they were able to move in their permanent residence halls, but it might work differently here at Colorado State. And again, because I'm so new, I do apologize. I don't know the exact details on that, but I do know that we have a housing representative here that can actually speak into that a little bit. The housing website, housing.colostate.edu, is going to really help you to start to prepare and think about housing. One thing is that housing is in the Fort Collins area. It is a little bit tight, and we do want to prepare you for that. And so it is something that you should be thinking about right now as you're preparing to arrive, just to start to think about, okay, when I arrive, what is going to be my plans? Our office, and I think I mentioned this last week, but we are here to help kind of troubleshoot, so to speak, but we do also want you to do your due diligence and really trying to start to locate housing as soon as you possibly can. So that would be great. Cool. All right, pre-departure and preparation and documentation. This is the next session. So before you depart your country, what kind of documents do you need and what kind of preparation do you need to make? And so we talked a little bit about housing in the former screen, but there are some health tasks that we would like to have you complete. Now, Colorado State University has a relatively new health center. It's absolutely amazing. You see that in the picture there. It's located on the southeast corner of campus. And so part of your fees will allow you access to our student health center here at this medical facility. And so there's a few things that they ask us to inform you about, and hopefully you are kind of thinking through this before you arrive as well. So we do need immunization and health history documents. And so on health.colostate.edu, they will actually have, I believe, the form that you need to complete. And really, as far as the immunization documents, those sometimes need to have a signature from a doctor, or at least have you had your MMR shots? What are some of the vaccinations that you've had? That sort of thing. You need to complete Haven and alcohol EDU programs, and these are actually Brown, how do I describe this? These are actually like I'm missing the term here, but certain, not webinars, so to speak, but what do we call those again?
They're modules that they have to complete.
Modules, yes, that's the word I'm looking for. So, and again, those can actually be found at health.colostate.edu, but basically those are modules that you have to complete prior to arriving. They won't take a lot of time, but there are almost like online classes that kind of inform you about some different things here on campus as well. It's different programs that we have. Do do any of the panels? I'm going to actually ask any of the panelists. Do you know what the Haven programs is and the alcohol education programs are? Can anyone speak into
I
that?
believe Haven is sexual assault, that type of thing. And then the alcohol is alcohol usage.
Okay. Okay, great. So there's going to be, of course, with the sexual harassment and those types of educational programs, those are going to be highlighted so that you understand what the rules and regulations are around sexual harassment and dating and that sort of thing. So that's going to be important. And then, you know, as far as alcohol usage, it's always great to actually prepare students. In the United States, of course, we have laws that actually say that you can't consume alcohol until you're of the age of 21 here in the US, which is very different to a lot of countries. And so with that being against the law, you need to understand some of those laws as well. And then, you know, how to, it never hurts to be instructed on how to drink responsibly. It seems like an odd conversation for many international communities and cultures that have grown up with alcohol throughout their entire lives. And so it seems to come second nature. But for those of our domestic students, of course, that have not been permitted to drink alcohol and will not be until, of course, they're 21, alcohol education is actually consuming responsibly and drinking responsibly is actually a very valuable program that we provide to our students. There is a health insurance requirement for all international students attending Colorado State University and any Colorado State University in the state of Colorado, State University in the state of Colorado. International students are required to purchase health insurance. And so you will not only be instructed about that, but we should, even within all of our costs, we should actually give you information on how much that's going to cost per year, annual health insurance. And so that is something that's tracked very closely, and it's required for you to purchase that. Is that, and again, so I apologize, but is that actually, Bronwyn or John, is that a requirement that they have to actually complete prior to registering for their first semester?
I'm sorry, Greg, could you repeat the question?
Health insurance, enrolling in health insurance before they can register for their first classes, are they required to sign up and purchase for health insurance, or is that something that's required that they do within the first couple of weeks that they get here? Does anyone have any insight on that?
Yeah, students are automatically enrolled in the CSU Student Health Insurance Plan. So you don't need to do anything to get enrolled. We will automatically enroll you in the CSU Health Insurance Plan. For sponsored students and some other students who may have outside health insurance coverage, there is a waiver process where you actually have to waive the CSU Student Health Insurance Plan. But you do not need to do anything. You'll automatically be enrolled in the Student Health Insurance Plan.
Awesome, that helps.
That actually happens as part of the registration, I believe.
Cool, that's great. But it's always going to be you're always going to be interested to find out what your health insurance covers and how that impacts. It's a unique situation here in the US in that healthcare is extremely expensive. Some of you actually may be coming from countries with socialized healthcare where you don't actually have to pay for medical care in your country. You can just go into the doctor and they provide services for you. But here in the US, it's very privatized. And so as a result, it can be extremely expensive. Health insurance is actually going to make healthcare more affordable. One thing I do mention with health insurance is that it's never going to make it free typically, but it's going to help reduce your costs. And so that is why the requirement is there, so that you're not sidetracked with medical bills should you need to use medical services here in the United States. it won't, for lack of a better way to put it, it won't bankrupt you. You will actually still be able to afford your education because much of the health insurance that is provided will cover a lot of your expenses as you need to use our healthcare system. So that is the reason for health insurance requirement in the United States. So, all right, next slide. And I do have to say, I appreciate, Christy, thanks for putting some of that information on housing in the chat. That's wonderful. Again, just a quick reminder, students, as you have questions, feel free to drop those in the questions and answer session. And I believe that our panelists will be typing quickly in the background and answering those questions. So registration, first of all, classes, undergraduate placement exams. You'll receive an email from OTP, and John or Bronwyn, can you indicate what the Office of Testing, I'm thinking, and Placement, maybe?
Good attempt. It's Orientation and Transition Programs is OTP.
Perfect. OTP.
So Greg, I can talk a little bit about this process.
This would be great.
So,
yeah, thank you.
Undergraduate students, to register for classes, you're going to be receiving an orientation link from OTP, so Orientation and Transition Programs. There is an orientation that you'll do online that you have to complete in order to be ready to register for classes. So be aware of that. Additionally, they're going to provide some information for you about placement exams pertaining to math courses and some other courses. You'll have to take some placement exams that will determine which level classes you'll be in. So be on the lookout for emails from Orientation and Transition Programs, OTP. Graduate students, you should contact your department directly for information about how to register for your courses. Hopefully you have some contact information for the academic contact in your department. If you don't, you can go to the graduate school website and you can search your department, and they will have a listing on the department homepage that will show you the academic contact for your program. And you can send that person a message and just request information for how you can register for classes. We also have, go ahead, Greg.
A couple thoughts on that, on those classes, because students ask, can I register early? And the answer is yes, but we did want to kind of spell out. So sometimes students, both undergrad and grad, register for classes before they arrive, even before they've received their visa or notification that their visa has been approved. And so one thing that we did want to kind of make sure that you're aware of, if you pre-register for classes before you arrive, and that's completely fine, there's no problems with that, but if you do, and you are having visa difficulties, or you're going to need to defer your admission to the next term because it is just apparent that you're not going to be able to arrive in time, we do want to make sure that you know it's your responsibility to drop those courses within the first, I believe, first week of classes, so that you're not charged for those classes. Because if you're pre-registered for those classes and you register before you arrive and you're not able to attend, you will actually still, Colorado State University in the state of Colorado will actually still charge you for those classes. So very important to understand that if you pre-register for classes prior to your arrival, you should, and you're not going to be able to arrive, or you're going to need to defer your admission, and it becomes apparent that that's going to be the case, you need to go out and drop those classes, withdraw from those classes as soon as you possibly can. So just as a caveat there. And go ahead, John. I think
Yeah, and I'll continue to speak on international orientation. So we have an international orientation program in January, which we hope that you'll all be able to attend. It's a really intentional day of activities and information that will really help you to adjust and have the best experience here in your first semester. There are some sessions that will happen online prior to our actual in-person orientation. And so we will send you information about that. And then also we'll have our in-person orientation where you'll be able to meet other international students and get some information from our office. We'll be able to show you around campus. It's a really good opportunity for you. And it is mandatory, it's required for you to attend. And you have to register for international orientation. Bronwyn, do you have anything else to add about orientation for students?
No, I put the link in the chat so everyone can access it. Like John said, there'll be a mix of some virtual for a lot of the required things, but then we'll have a shorter day that has additional mandatory components. And then the link that I provided has both the registration and a schedule that you can look at. There's a lot of additional optional events that are incredibly helpful. Things like setting up a bank account. We'll have bank representatives in our office available to help you. We'll have a transportation session to learn how to use the buses around Fort Collins and options for biking. There's a shopping trip. We'll have representatives from student accounts to talk about billing and payments on your student accounts. So there's a lot of other optional events that I think are really beneficial, even though they're not required. And we also do fun things most of the evenings of the week. So that's another great way to just connect with other students if you're looking to make new friends, connections, and just kind of getting more involved in things that we're doing in our office.
That's awesome. Actually, orientation, just on a side note, it's probably one of our favorite times of the year as we meet our new students and see the excitement on your faces. And so it tends to be just a really fantastic time for our office just to get to know you as individuals as well. So we are always excited to see all of your new smiling faces when you come. So orientation is really kind of a fun time for not only you to learn a lot about Colorado State University, the Office of International Programs, International Student Services, but it also gives us an opportunity just to interact with you on that first week as we start to get to know you as students. So that's great. So that's awesome. Cool. Any other
Hey, Greg,
additional
can you hear
thoughts?
me
Cool.
now?
Yep, I can hear you. Yeah, Alan, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I missed the first bit. I was just not able to get the microphone working in here.
Yeah, no
It's
problem.
pretty
Actually,
fancy. I got this nice video camera, but I couldn't get the audio. But I just logged in my phone now, and I'd be happy to take over if you don't.
Yeah, absolutely, Alan. Actually, and before you do that, just introduce yourself just a little bit and tell people how long have you been with Colorado State University and just your passion for the field of international education. That would be fantastic. And welcome. Glad you're here.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Alan Boyd, and I'm an advisor in this office. I've been here for about 5 years, and I'm from Kansas. And I spent some time living in Russia and Turkey. And I love working with international students because of all the things that I learned from all of you.
Oops, sounds like we did everyone lose Alan's audio. Alan, sounds like we
I
lost.
Can't hear you.
Yeah, we lost your audio, Alan. All right, looks like we lost Alan, which is okay. Alan, as you, as the text, so again, for the participants, best laid plan, so to speak, sometimes technology doesn't always work the way that we'd hope for it to, that kind of thing. And so it's quite all right, we'll roll with it. Alan, if you do get your sound squared away there, you can jump back in, but we will keep progressing and kind of go from there. All right, so finances. Alan, are you there? Can we?
I don't think
Still?
he knows that we've lost him. He's still talking.
Okay, can't, all right, so can't hear Alan. So So with finances, I'll keep talking finances, and hopefully Alan figures that, and maybe John, I don't know if you want to go up to the upstairs, that would be great, and really try to let Alan know that that's the case. With finances, so finances complete before arrival. So a couple things on the financial side. First of all, you want to bring money for initial expenses such as transportation, temporary housing, and food. What we encourage you to do is actually bring at least $500 with you. You don't want to travel with a lot of cash when you are traveling. I think typically when you enter the US, they're going to ask a lot of times how much money you're carrying. If you, I believe, have any more than $10,000 on your person, you need to declare that when you arrive. And so we would also say that's not safe, and it's not best practices to travel with that kind of money. And so bring at least $500 with you so that you can really kind of navigate the transportation systems. You have a little bit of money for housing and food for your initial week or two that you're here, just as an emergency fund. Spring tuition deadline is February 10th, and so you will need to make sure that you make arrangements to pay your tuition prior to this date. Bronwyn, do you know, is there payment plans that they can sign up for, or anything of that sort that the university has that they can actually start to investigate prior to arrival as well?
Yeah, I believe there are on Business and Financial Services site, there would be information, but I don't know a lot about that. And so I'm going to rely on the expertise of our Business and Financial Services person on the session that is happening on January 9th. That's going to provide a lot of helpful information. But if I do find that information on the website, I'll post it in the chat. Oh, Christy has something to share.
Yeah, Chris, you jump on in.
Good morning, everyone. So I have a CSU student in my household right now. So because of that experience, I'm aware that if you go to your RamWeb account, the option to sign up for a payment plan is there on the billing statement. So students can look at that to find a little bit of information about how to sign up for a payment plan.
Awesome. And Alan, it looks like we have you joining us from John's office, where the technology is a little bit more steadfast, so to speak. That's fantastic. So I will turn this slide over to you, because I know you had some thoughts on this, and you were talking
Well,
about
we'll see. We'll see how long it lasts. With my luck today, maybe I'll ruin John's computer too.
Alan, it's all yours.
Oh, well, I was just talking about the cash necessary to bring to campus with you. We don't want students to bring too much cash, but just enough to pay for transportation from the airport to campus, and also maybe for some temporary housing if you need to stay in a hotel for a few nights. Might be a good idea for food, and if you need to buy some bedding. Of course, ideally you'll be able to use your debit or credit cards when you arrive. That's usually not a problem. Did you already talked about the tuition deadline?
Just
right?
briefly, yeah, and I think, and we talked a little bit about, there is an ability to sign up for a payment plan. Bronwyn, can you drop the date of that financial webinar that they're having, that they can actually access and get a little bit more information on paying tuition and things like that as well within the chat? That would be great. So we did just briefly cover that. So yep, banking and RAM card, that's all yours. So I haven't touched those yet.
The CSU ID card may also be a bank card for you. And there is a couple of banking options that have a branch right here in the student center on campus. So those would be the most convenient. And Bronwyn mentioned earlier that there will be a representative who can help you to set up a bank account available at the orientation. And we recommend that. It's the easiest way. So we look forward to sharing those options with you, and check out the pre-arrival guide for a few more details. That's one of the first links in the chat, and we'll provide it to you again before the end. Here's a few photographs of those banking locations.
And then you are
So,
controlling. Yep, perfect. Yep.
About your packing plans. We just wanted to talk a little bit about some things that you should bring with you. Here's a photograph of a typical two-person dorm room. Generally for undergrads, undergraduates are required to spend the first year in the residence halls, and it's important to note that they do provide a bed and a desk with a chair and a closet, and as you can see in the picture, a little trash can and a recycling bucket. But there's nothing else in the room for you. So you need to bring, except for a mattress. There's a mattress, but there's no pillow. So if you are staying in a residence hall, please be prepared and either bring it with you or just be prepared to purchase one after you arrive. We generally arrange a trip to a local department store like Walmart or Target for students, so you can plan to purchase them there. But you'll need to have sheets, and you need to buy sheets or bring sheets, a blanket, and a pillow. Also, it's winter and they're expected to be below freezing here for much of the first few months that you're here. So if you'd plan to bring some warm clothes, or of course purchase them after you arrive. We've also heard students say that one thing that they wished they had brought with them is like photos of home. So if you have pictures that you can tack onto your wall of family and friends and places that you love from home, that's a common thing that students say that they wish they had brought with them. Also, of course, in the USA, we have the 110 volt outlet, not the 220, and it's the NEMA variety. Yeah, you can purchase one after you arrive in the US. Purchase an adapter. I mean, if you've got non-USB plugs that you want to use, like for an alarm clock or your laptop or something, bring it with you, or you can purchase one after you arrive.
One other thing that we've always told students to bring as well is if you're coming from a country where you have traditional dress that is much different than how we dress in the United States, like Alan's wearing or what I wear, that kind of thing. We do have many international programs throughout the year. And so as you participate in those, it's always fun to be able to wear something more traditional from your country. So if you wanted to bring a traditional dress or garments that you would wear kind of at a celebration or whatnot, it might be good to bring one of those items with you as well, just because it will be useful as you engage our community and talk about your culture and that kind of thing as well. So we'd encourage you to do something.
Yeah, Greg,
like
by the way, what is the traditional garment of people from Minnesota?
Sweaters and jeans and nothing fancy, right? So let's say if we were going to a celebration or something like that, we would have a suit or something like that, right? That's
a completely denim jeans.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. It's funny that you asked that. There was one year that I was presenting on winter attire, and so I came out during orientation and I had my silver fox fur hat on, and I had my Filson wool jacket and my Carhartts, so that when I was out ice fishing or whatever the case is. So you laugh, but we do have some traditional Norwegian and or Scandinavian type garb that keeps us pretty warm. So it's funny looking for sure, but Yeah, we have some traditions up here in Minnesota as well. You're exactly right. How about in Colorado? I should ask that. What are some traditional,
Well,
any,
you're,
go ahead.
I would be the wrong person to answer that, but yeah, flannel and ski gear, I guess.
That's right.
So yeah, here is a little picture of, you know, the typical climate, the climate in Fort Collins and what you can expect. I actually, you know, if you're planning, you know, being here in the summertime, I think it gets even hotter on average than August and July. It feels like it's close to more like 36 or 37 degrees Celsius or 100 degrees Fahrenheit in July and August. Maybe this climate graph is a 10 years old or so, but you know, it's a lovely town. You can see some photographs from the winter and the summer here. Cycling is about as popular as it will get in the USA in this town, which may not be still as popular as some places in Europe or Latin America and Asia, but for an American town, cycling is really big here. And you may doubt that after you arrive, but it really is. We are very proud of our cycling lanes. And so a different topic is we talked about what you should bring to the USA, but when it comes to bringing what you should bring on the airplane, please take a look at this list here. We of course want you to bring your immigration documents like your I-20 or your DS form. Also your passport and your visa, of course, should stay with you. Some other things that when you arrive to passport control, they might ask you about are the receipt for your I-901 payment. They may ask you for documentation of your funding. You know, if that's a private funding, they may ask for to see like a bank account documentation, the same thing that you showed to CSU in order to get your immigration document, or a sponsor letter from your home government if that's where your funding comes from. You know, it doesn't happen very often, but it's possible that they might ask you about these things. Also health forms like you know, immunization records is possible. If you have prescriptions with you, then they may want to see some documentation in English. And it's a good idea to carry your official transcripts or test scores, not because the passport control generally asks about those, but just so you don't lose them if your luggage gets rerouted or something. So you have them with you. And of course, your electronics, keep those with you. This is just a basic list of things that you want to have with you in case your luggage gets lost also.
So a couple thoughts on this that I wanted to mention just from past student experiences that I've had over the years. Every now and then we have a student that when they check in, they present their documents and then they stick those documents in their checked luggage, and then the luggage kind of gets underneath the plane and then they have difficulties. So it's extremely important, as Alan is talking to you about this, that you know, okay, have all of this stuff together. Do not check it with your luggage. Have it on your person, bring it on the plane, that sort of thing, because it can cause some extreme difficulties if you were to use it to check in and get your tickets and then put it in your luggage and then send it to the bottom of the plane. And then a side note, I will say this: in the 25 years that I've worked with international students, I've only had one time where a student's luggage was actually lost and they never received it. Okay. Otherwise, there have been times where it's been delayed, it's got lost, but it was delivered to them that following week, and that's pretty common. So if you get to Denver and your luggage is not on the what do we call it, the luggage station or whatever to pick up your luggage, do not panic. And typically the airports will actually deliver that to at no additional charge. They'll deliver it to students. And Bronwyn's saying that it's happened twice now with students here at CSU where they haven't received their luggage.
It was twice for you, because this is your student. That was the second time for you.
Twice now, because we had one this fall. Okay. Yeah. And I got here in the fall, so I was not aware of that. So it can be disconcerting. Make sure that you have those important documents with you so that they don't get lost. Yeah. But I do want to reassure you that there is a high probability if your luggage is delayed for whatever reason, the airports are good at delivering those to your apartment or your dorm room or to our office, whatever address that you give them. And then we can reunite you with your luggage many, many times if that happens. Do not be overly anxious about that.
Yeah, thank you very much. So about the last leg of your trip, we just wanted to chat about that. Not so much about the transportation from your home country to the USA, but we'd like to give you some tips about the airport in Denver, assuming that's where you will fly into at the end. There are a few students who might fly to LA or Chicago or something and then enjoy a road trip or stay with friends. But assuming you're flying into Denver International Airport, we just want to first highlight the 30-day rule. With an F1 and a J1 visa, you are permitted to arrive in the USA no sooner than 30 days before the start of your program. So the start of your program, that's January 17, Tuesday, January 17. So that means you should not arrive in the USA sooner than December 18, 30 days before. So if your flight is arriving even a day before that, there is a strong chance you'll not be allowed to enter the USA. So please pay close attention to that and don't arrive sooner than 30 days before January 17. The port of entry documentation, those are your immigration documents like your I-20 or DS 2019, plus your passport, visa, and also that I-901 receipt. You need to have those at your port of entry, and your port of entry may not be Denver Airport. That may be New York or Chicago, Los Angeles, the first airport in the USA, or in some cases it could be even Dubai. Dubai, I think, is a port of entry to USA, or Toronto, Canada. I think in Ireland. I mean, there's a few ports of entry outside the U.S. and you'll need to have your documents available. So that's why we say keep those in your carry-on baggage. And if you there's a possibility that you may get referred to something called secondary inspection. So you enter the passport control line, and it's possible that they will say that they want to ask you even more questions. And please don't be too overly concerned. I mean, it is pretty annoying if you have to go to secondary inspection. They bring you to another booth or room to just go in greater detail. Sometimes they have a specific reason for bringing somebody into secondary inspection. For example, your I-20 is not printed, or you don't have the I-20 with you. Those are reasons they want to bring you to secondary. But sometimes it's just random, and they'll bring you to the side, and it will take another 30 minutes or maybe an hour or two, which is really annoying. But and again, it's pretty rare that you would get called for secondary. But if you do, please just don't be too overly concerned, and just answer the questions that they need, and then you can move on out of secondary. If you haven't bought your flight yet, I would strongly recommend that you try your best to make your port of entry, that is your first arrival airport in the USA, as Denver International Airport. In our experience, it's just, they run a very smooth operation. It's not nearly as busy as like airports in New York City or Texas, Atlanta, Chicago. And also we have met the people there. They know us, so they can give us a call. They know how to contact us. If you do need to contact our office while you are at the port of entry airport, please jot down these phone numbers here. And the first phone number, 491-5917, that is our office phone number that you can reach during business hours in Colorado, between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. But the other number, 491-6425, this number you may need to call if it's after 5 p.m. or before 8 o'clock in the morning, Colorado time, and you need to contact somebody in the international office at CSU to confirm your information. So please jot these phone numbers down just in case.
A couple thoughts on the secondary inspection is, oops. I was unmuted, sorry. So two thoughts. One, a quick story. This even happens to actually US citizens at times. I took a fishing trip up to Canada and I was driving back in across the border. And apparently I look sketchy, I don't know, but I got referred to secondary. And so this experience was interesting because I got to actually experience what at times international students experience. And so I'm in this like room that's got glass windows and I had to empty all my pockets and they were searching my car and that kind of thing. And they asked me what I do. And I go, well, I work with you guys a lot. And they're like, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, I work with international students. And so I work with Customs and Border Patrol quite often as international students. So I said, this is fascinating, kind of the experience that they're going to have. So I think one, it is common at times. And so if this does happen to you, we do want to encourage you to remain calm and not think that that they've singled you out for any reason. I think I was just a random check like Alan was saying. And so that was kind of the case. The other thing is if your final or if your port of entry isn't DIA, as you're scheduling your flights, it is not unwise. So it is wise to actually have a 2-hour delay between your next flight if possible, so that if you do get referred to secondary, you still have time to make your connecting flight. So if there's a slight layover when you get to the US, that's actually kind of a beneficial thing for international travelers. So it just relieves the stress knowing you're going to be able to get through immigration and be able to make your next connecting flight. So if that happens where you're coming in at different airports throughout the US, that's what we would encourage as well. So
yeah, and here's a photograph of our lovely airport in Denver. It has great views of the mountains and kind of a unique design. Anyway, on to the final leg when you are coming from that airport into the CSU campus. There's pretty much, I mean, unless you know somebody here in town who's picking you up, there really is just two options for you. Fort Collins is about 1 hour drive, a 1 hour drive from the Denver International Airport, and the most common option would be the Groom Company shuttle bus. Right now, the cost is $55, and you need to make a reservation. And you can do that like at the airport prior to your arrival in Denver. If you arrive in New York and you're still on the ground, you can go on your phone and make a reservation here. It's pretty easy. And also you can of course use a ride share like Uber or Lyft when you arrive at the airport, and that will be around $100, give or take. It could be $70, it could be $150 if you arrive at a really busy time. So it's pretty expensive option, but Groom is, they have a shuttle bus leaving like every hour at minimum, sometimes every 30 minutes during the busy times. And they will take you directly to campus, in the middle of campus. So they generally make a stop, make 2 stops before the campus stop. So it would probably be your 3rd stop if you take the Groom shuttle bus. Anyway, yeah, here you might take these contact information is in the arrival guide, the pre-arrival guide that John linked to at the beginning of the presentation. So, you know, here's our phone number and email and our fax number. By the way, if you do fax us, please also like send an email, because we don't check the fax. I mean, I don't know if we still do. I'm sure we would catch it, but who still uses a fax? Come on. We jot these down. Here's a nice photo of our campus in the springtime. Can't wait till spring already. I'm missing the nice weather. And that's pretty much all we wanted to chat with you about. But like I said, the pre-arrival guide has has more details written down. And if you, at this point, we would just like to solicit your questions. If you have anything that you'd like to ask, please enter it into the Q&A section, and we'd be happy to entertain your curiosity.
Awesome.
So we will hang around on the webinar, keep the webinar open for another 10 minutes or so, just kind of looking for your questions. But otherwise, if you don't have any questions, I think you can go ahead and sign off of the webinar. And like I said, we welcome your emails or faxes or phone calls.
Thank you, Alan. This is great, and I'm a strong believer in giving credit where credit's due. The presentation. Thank you for developing this and actually putting it together. It's top notch. It's really solid. So thank you, Alan. What I would say is this: there are many times where questions come up afterwards, and you're like, "Oh, I should have asked this," or whatever the case is. So, like Alan said, you know, John and Rochelle and Alan and even Zach and Malor, when it comes to the I-20 questions and DS 2019 questions, we are all here to happily answer any questions to help make your transition a smooth one when you start to embark on this this fantastic adventure. Really, it's going to be a fun time, and I know that it doesn't always come with a lack of anxiety at times, because especially if this is your first international travel experience, for many of you it won't be. You've traveled elsewhere, but if it's your first time in the US, anytime you get to a country, you think, oh, what's it going to be like on the other side? And it is extremely reassuring, as I've traveled, knowing people in that country prior to that, you know that they're going to be able to help you out and help you through some of the difficulties that you have that come along with just the natural transition to a new culture. And so we are here to help you out any way that we can. So as questions come up, even after the webinar is over, and you're like, oh, I need to ask this question, or you talk with your parents or maybe your spouse and we didn't cover something and you have some questions, we can definitely do some research on that and help you out from that standpoint. So I wish we had some music to play for the next 10 minutes or whatever the case is. Alan can sing. But I'm not going to say that he has to, so to speak. I'm just joking around. But so as you have questions, feel free to put them in the question and answer session. But
yeah, we don't want to turn anybody away from CSU.
Correct. That's exactly it. But it has been a pleasure presenting this information to you all. And hopefully, as you've engaged in these couple sessions, if you missed last week, this is just a taster of what last week is. But what you're going to find is genuine people that are here to care about you and help you with your transition. And so it is truly a pleasure to be able to present this information and help you along this journey. So we're glad that you attended, and we look forward to seeing you, your smiling faces, actually in January here.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned to people, while it might be a little bit cold outside, it's always warm and friendly in our office. So stop by the Office of International Programs on the northeast side of the Oval. You'll see, I think the picture below is the Oval. No, yeah, it's actually, that's a view of our building right there, I believe. Is that correct? No.
I think that's southwest side.
Oh, that's the southwest side. Okay.
Yeah, Parya had a question about when the deadline for deferring is. And Parya, you can defer right up until the first day of classes. I mean, you could actually even defer after that. For immigration purposes, if you have paid your I-901 fee and you want to preserve that payment, then you just got to notify us within the first month of classes. So you can even defer after classes have begun for immigration purposes. For admission purposes, please do that before classes begin.
And we would actually just also say that if you have taken the opportunity to pre-register and you end up deferring or finding the need to defer, it's so important that you withdraw out of those classes. It's not our intent to charge you for those fees. It's just policy with the state of Colorado. So make sure that you withdraw out of those classes if you're pre-registered before you arrive, so that you're not charged a substantial amount. We just don't want to see that. We hate to see that.
There's another question from an attendee. Hi, everyone. Can anyone help me out on resources or anyone who I can get in touch with for a visa, because I was rejected for my visa recently? I'm really sorry to hear that. That is a painful rejection. And if you'd like to leave your, I want to say, your CSU ID number here, or we'd be able to look you up and send you some specific feedback about how you can improve your chances a little bit. Unfortunately, the visa adjudication process, even for us, is a little bit opaque in some ways. But if you're able to share your the reason for your rejection, usually it comes in a number like 212F or something like that. We may be able to give you a little bit more specific feedback. So yeah, I'm really sorry to hear about your visa rejection. 214B. Okay. Yeah, that would we can look that up and give you some more specific feedback, Sankara.
Yeah.
And so
I would say, just on
Greg.
that note, John, a lot of times students request us, hey, is there anything you can do to reach out to the embassy? And as John's kind of referring, or excuse me, Alan's kind of referring, there's really, unfortunately, nothing we can do. The visa interview is between you and the Department of State, so they won't allow an outside person such as Colorado State University to act on your behalf or inquire about your visa circumstances or situation. They will not share that with us, unfortunately. And so as a result, the best we can do is try to give you a little bit more guidance, that kind of thing. It is a difficult situation when you're rejected for the visa, and I wish there was something we could do to advocate on your behalf, but unfortunately the Department of State will not allow it. So yeah, it's tough, but we can help you and try to encourage you and try to get a better understanding. And, maybe second time that you apply, they typically indicate in that 214B, and that 214B is really kind of a, I hate to say it, it's from the Department of State. It's kind of a weak document. Sometimes it's extremely general. And so the visa embassy consulate, or the visa consulate officials, consular officers, they actually have it's a subjective, not an objective process, unfortunately. And so by that, if they feel like anything's off in your responses, or really as they're talking with you, they've got your documents in front of them. And as they talk with you, they want to see or understand that what you say matches what they have on paper in front of them. And if they get any inkling or any kind of hesitation, their typical response is to deny. And sometimes you can ask that question. If you're with the officer and you ask them, why was I denied? Sometimes they will just say, refer to the 214B form, and you can apply within the next 6 months again for a visa. Sometimes they'll tell you, but if they say, nope, I don't have, just read the document that we have. You never want to argue with a consulate officer or anything like that. Just say, okay, and then reach out to us and we'll see if we can't encourage you and help prepare you a little bit better as well. So it's tough. So.
I also see another question from Anthony about the health forms at the port of entry. I'm sorry if I made this confusing earlier, but we want you to carry these documents with you in your bag, not because you're likely to be asked at the port of entry, but because we just don't want you to lose them if your luggage is delayed, or very rare if it's lost. So we just want you to have those with you in your carry-on luggage. I highly doubt, I've not heard of anybody being asked for immunization forms at the port of entry. Those are CSU requirements. So are there any problems you would face at the port of entry if you don't have health forms? I cannot say 100% yes, but very, very likely no, not at all. And then Sankara, okay, Sankara, I will follow up by email with you. I found your email here, so thank you for asking that. These are great questions. We really appreciate the chance to discuss them with you. And when you ask a question, it's almost certain that many other people have the same questions. So it's very helpful. Any question you have, if you could put it in the Q&A, and also reach out to us afterward directly. If there's not any other questions, I think we could wrap up the presentation for this morning, or this evening, if you're on the other side of the world.
All right. Well,
thank you everyone for your attendance.
Thank you. That's fantastic. And again, once again, Alan, thank you. Fantastic presentation. Sorry for the technical difficulties you experienced, but very, very thankful that you were able to resolve that and kind of jump in, because it's fantastic. So thank you.
And I'd also just like to thank our housing partner, Christy Matthews, who jumped on as a panelist to help us answer the questions. So thank you, Christy. We really appreciate you.
That's great. All right, with that, everyone have a wonderful rest of the week. And we once again look forward to seeing you in Office of International Programs. We're going to trust that you are all successful navigating the visa process and arriving on campus, and we can't wait to meet you. So it's fantastic.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.